風行ってるかね。あんまり聞いてないね。
In terms of how that would play out over time, whatever balance you have is going to be accruing at that rate. Now, you never have a payment with a reverse mortgage, so you never have to make a payment, but you can. So if you ever wanted to pay a portion of it back, you can pay back, and that would reduce the amount that it's earning interest, but you don't have to. And so, and you would be, assured that you would never owe more than the house is worth. But if you never borrowed that much, then, any equity would be available to you when you move or pass away for your heirs.
Right. Well, we're debt free. The mortgages have been paid off for years, but for, let's say you want to buy a car, you could use it for that.
Oh, absolutely, because, the most common way people use a reverse mortgage is, with the line of credit. So basically, as long as you have at least typically 50% equity in the house, in your case you have 100, you're over 62, they'll give you a line of credit and say you can use it however much you want. You'll never have a payment.
Right.
And then, often it's recalculated each year because, as your home appreciates and as you age, you can typically get more line of credit available to you. Now, you do want to think about, is that the best option for, you to buy a car? I mean, it's a depreciating asset. So if you can afford to have that payment just kind of built into your budget, I don't think that's a bad idea. But again, the beautiful part of that reverse mortgage is if you get to this part of your life and you just don't have the income that you want or need to maintain your lifestyle, this is a way to tap into what is probably your largest asset and either supplement your income or just have some additional resources available that you can use for things like, other purchases.
Yes. Now, is there an initial fee for starting? We'll call it an account, but is there a fee involved?
Yeah, there is. And so the main fee up front is the 2% origination fee that goes to the FHA and the Federal Housing Administration. And here's what that does. So the key with a reverse mortgage that's different than a forward or conventional mortgage is, with a conventional mortgage, you're personally guaranteeing the loan. And so if the house is ever not valuable enough to satisfy the loan, then you have to come out of pocket personally and they'll come after you for it. In the case of reverse, you are not personally guaranteeing it. The Federal Housing Administration is. And so if for some reason your house depreciated or you lived a long time and they paid out more than the house was worth or something like that, any difference between the value of the home and what you owe is covered by FHA. Well, the way you get that is by paying this 2% origination fee up front, up to $200,000, so it's capped at $6,000. And then there's also one other fee, an annual fee of 0.5%, which is the mortgage insurance premium. So there are some fees involved that you need to factor in, but that's pretty much the extent of it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Good information.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. And here's the way I think about this is, I love the idea that you're debt free and you paid everything off and you're, sitting in a really great spot. And that's awesome. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, a lot of our listeners, are in that same boat where they say, listen, I want to be debt free by the time I retire, and, feels really good. There's a lot of peace of mind that comes from owning, your home outright. The only challenge is if you have not been able to save to put yourself into a position where you've got enough income beyond Social Security to maintain your lifestyle, then we're starting to look at things like, all right, do we need to sell the house? Do I need to work part-time? And often, folks in that season, if you're in that position where you feel like you haven't saved enough, are sitting on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in home equity. So the ability to say, okay, let me look at all the tools at my disposal that could allow me to generate income, or pay for things in this season of life, the home is one of those. And so the ability to have you and your spouse stay in it for the rest of your life, your kids probably don't want it if you have kids, they're just going to sell it anyway. So your ability to kind of extract some of that equity to either supplement your income or for certain purchases, I think is at least worth considering as one of the planning tools. We would look at the IRA and say, how much are we going to take it out of that? We would look at an annuity and say, how much is it going to pay us? This is just another one of those tools by looking at your home equity. So the reverse mortgage, I think, is something worth considering if you're in that particular position. Hopefully that helps you, Jim. Thanks for your call, my friend. If you want to learn more about this, just go to movement.com/faith, and our friends at Movement Mortgage can help you out. All right, to Louisiana, Dee Dee, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Hi there.
Hi. I appreciate your show so very much. Very knowledgeable. On a daily basis. My question is concerning my three grandchildren. Their ages are 3, 18 months, and 1 week. I'm wanting to set up some kind of account for them where I can put money in. Here lately, I've considered the universal life insurance policy, and at this point, I would love your advice on which direction to go with.
Yeah. Universal life for grandchildren, I would say, can work, but it's generally not the best tool and not going to be my first choice for sure. It's more expensive than other savings vehicles. The returns on the cash value are often low and can be eaten up by fees. And I think you can have better long-term financial growth in either a 529 plan or other investments. So if your goal is a financial blessing and not really insurance, because we don't need insurance on the kids, then or on your life because nobody's counting on you for income, then I would say either considering an education savings plan, if that's what it's for specifically, like a 529, or considering just a straight investment account where maybe, it's still in your name, not a custodial account, because the problem with that is it becomes the majority, and they may not be spiritually or financially mature enough to take it at that time. And yet it automatically becomes their money. So if they want to buy a sports car or, let's say, and let's pray this isn't the case, but their lifestyle happened to be at that moment kind of orienting away from the Lord, this money could be used for things that you're not very excited about. And so that's where a custodial account kind of takes that away from you in terms of choosing how and when you're going to actually hand this money off to them. So if you didn't want to do the 529, I'd probably just have you open separate brokerage accounts in your name, or if you're married, you and your husband, and earmark them for each of the 3 grandkids, and then just dollar cost average, however much money, whether it's a one-time amount or a monthly amount, into that account, have it just go into some straight high-quality exchange-traded funds or mutual funds, like the ones that we've talked about today on our website from some of the faith-based investing asset managers, and just let it grow. And you don't need to pay the expenses related to the insurance, which makes it more complex and more expensive, and just have a straight investment and just kind of forget about it and even automate the contributions, and you'll have quite a nest egg down the road when it's time to think about handing this off to the grandkids. Does that make sense, though?
It does make sense. My goal for them is for them to have money for education or whatever field they choose to go into. I in no way want them to set it up where they are possibly irresponsible with it. So I appreciate this information.
Yeah, no problem. Now, the question is always, especially when it comes to grandkids, do we want to put it in a vehicle that requires it to be used for qualified educational expenses? And that typically means vocational technical schools as well, because if you believe that's really what it's for, then I would say the 529 plan is the
お父さん、首から下げるやつ持ってるよね。首から下げるやつ今日持ってきた。持ってきてるよ。なんか男がいたらさ、言われたら見せればいい。
for those qualified educational expenses. So if that's what you're thinking, then you control it as well. That's the direction I would go. The key is which 529 plan, because you may find that Louisiana is not the best one for you. So I would have my favorite website for this. It's savingforcollege.com, savingforcollege.com, and you'll find you tell it all the information about you, and it'll recommend the top 529 plans, because you can go out of state to another state's 529 if the returns are better in terms of historical performance. Savingforcollege.com. Dee Dee, you sound like a great grandmother. Thanks for your call today. Hey, big thanks to my team, Adam, Sandy, Jim, Taylor, everybody here at Faith 5. If you want to become a partner, we're looking for 25 more Faith 5 partners. To learn more, just go to faith5.com/give. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas.
State employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign by designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037. You help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump says NATO members will increase their contributions to 5%. Speaking at the NATO summit at The Hague, Trump said for too long, the United States has held up the organization financially, and that's about to change.
And all of this is going to be done very quickly, almost immediately. In a very historic milestone this week, the NATO allies committed to dramatically increase their defense spending to that 5% of GDP, something that no one really thought possible. And they said, "You did it, sir, you did it." Well, I don't know if I did it, but I think I did. This will be known as the Hague Defense Commitment. When the allies reach this number, it will add more than $1 trillion a year to our common defense. And this is a monument really to victory, but it's a monumental win for the United States, because we were carrying much more than our fair share.
After the U.S. struck 3 major Iranian nuclear sites Sunday, a new report suggests the damage has only set Iran's nuclear program back by a few months. That's based on a leaked U.S. intelligence report cited by CNN and the New York Times. President Trump is attacking CNN, saying their coverage of the U.S. strike in Iran was dishonest and unfair, describing the network this way.
Gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch this garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people.
Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz agrees with the president and says CNN and MSNBC are an extension of the Democratic Party in Washington.
We just saw an incredible military strike that successfully took out Iran's nuclear weapons capability. And what are the Democrats doing this week? They're voting on trying to disapprove President Trump defending America.
Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire after a 12-day battle ended with a U.S. intervention. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee says the president says what he means.
America is only as good as its word. And sometimes our word has been dirt. With Donald Trump, our word, it means something. And so when we say this is what the red line is, and President Trump articulates that, the world can understand.
A shareholder activist group is not giving up efforts to raise concern about MasterCard and DEI. Chris Woodward has more.
The Free Enterprise Project at the National Center for Public Policy Research identified what it calls 3 ways in which MasterCard appears to still practice what seems to be straight-up illegal affirmative action. Stefan Padfield of the Free Enterprise Project.
So funneling money to individuals on the basis of race, that money being basically the assets of shareholders, promoting people on the basis of race, and so on. So we filed this proposal asking them to assess the risks of that conduct, and that's what we took to a vote.
The proposal lost, but Padfield says a pro-DEI proposal also failed to get enough support.
The reason that's so important is because a lot of the pro-DEI activists will take a loss on our part with one of these anti-DEI proposals and run around saying shareholders love DEI, but they really can't do that, although they still will. But they can't do it if both the pro-DEI and the anti-DEI proposal lost by over 90%, which is most likely what happened in this case.
Batfield says people everywhere should be concerned about MasterCard. This could include people with investments and even those that use one of MasterCard's competitors. AFN is seeking comment from MasterCard. I'm Chris Woodward.
And finally, high temperatures continue today for the eastern U.S., but not for much longer.
The extremely dangerous heat hangs on for one more day after shattering records yesterday, especially across the Northeast. Temperatures will begin to relax on Thursday, especially for the Midwest and the East Coast. The cold front helping to break the heat will bring the risk of stronger storms and heavy rain for sections of the Midwest, the upper Mississippi Valley, and the Great Lakes region. And there are flooding concerns for parts of the Southwest and the Plains today. Fox Weather has all of your latest details. I'm Janice Dean. Fox News.
There's more news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Key.
President Trump made it clear the government will not go along with the woke agenda. Sadly, the gender radicals have intensified their attacks on our families. Will you sign the petition urging President Trump to stand strong in his resolution to stop the LGBTQ agenda in the government and in America? And please, consider a gift to keep AFA Action in the fight. To thank you for that gift, we'll send you the DVD in his image. Visit afaaction.net today. afaaction.net. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on this Wednesday, June the 25th, 2025. Thank you for listening to AFR. And joining me in studio today is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Wesley Wildman.
And good morning.
And Chris Woodward.
Hello.
And we thank you again for listening. A lot to talk about, a lot in the news. It's a good thing because this show would not exist had we have news to talk about. I guess we could gardening tips or...
Well, I mean, if we didn't have issues, what we couldn't have today's issues.
Right.
There's got to be some issues somewhere.
That would be a good promo for our show.
Yeah.
In fact, we could clip that up.
Yeah. If we didn't have issues, we wouldn't have today's issues to talk about.
Now, you could have tomorrow's issues, but you'd have to wait until tomorrow to deal with it.
Just know that this is the best we're going to be able to do today, and we are not.
Have a good day, everybody.
We're not. One thing we can promise you, we're not going to go over our personal issues. Okay.
Right. I personally have issues, but that's what I was talking about.
Right. You want to review those now?
Yeah.
I don't.
Pull up the couch or get the.
Right.
All right. Jenna Ellis will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Jenna is the host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning right here each weekday on American Family Radio. And she's a constitutional lawyer. And she's going to, we're going to review a couple of things that have been in the news that are big news stories. Namely, the Supreme Court sided with President Trump and his administration 6-3 that if you're here illegally in the U.S. and you are deported, you don't necessarily get to choose where you're sent to. You may be sent to if you're a criminal, especially you may be sent to like El Salvador or something like that. So that was a big ruling, and that came down a couple days ago. We'll talk to Jenna about that. And also going to ask her the big news story, which we are so thankful for. It's heartening to see where these children in Florida were rescued and they were being trafficked, right?
Yes.
So we're going to talk to her about that. She's very familiar with that too. How many children were there?
60 missing children have been rescued.
And did we mention sometime, I don't know about this week or last week, that there's like 340,000 children unaccounted for across the border.
You mean they crossed the border
over the 4 years of the Biden administration,
Yeah.
and the federal government doesn't know where they are.
Okay, so that obviously goes against the whole narrative of these are families coming over,
right?
Because you know, there was that image of the parents being ripped away from their kids, but in many cases, how many are missing?
Well, I don't remember who gave the statistic, but I remember reading it or hearing it that there were 340,000 children in this country who had crossed the border, and the government doesn't know where they are, where they went.
Yeah, and the point I was making is that if they came over with their parents,
right,
their parents would know where they are.
Yes.
You know, so that's a big problem.
All right, what's the first news story, Chris?
Well, liberal news outlets.
All of them.
Yeah,
They're
many
all.
of them. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, ABC. They're all reporting that U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back by months. This is according to what liberal news outlets are describing as an early U.S. intelligence assessment that was described by 7 people briefed on it. The assessment, which had not been previously reported, was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's intelligence arm. So, long story short, there are reports out today that the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend did not do as much damage as President Trump told us it did.
How do they know? Well,
That's a good question. That's a good question. Trump says...
Why I'm here.
Well, there's supposedly some leaks.
Yes.
Say that.
Yeah, it's leaks that have been briefed on this report that confirmed or spoke to CNN and other news outlets on anonymity or asked not to be identified. So that story is out there. To go with this story is some audio from the president himself, who says the leaked document does not or did not paint an accurate picture. Clip 2.
I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast. Well, the intelligence was very inconclusive. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we could take that we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration.
Trump also doubts that anything at Fordo and these other locations was saved. Clip 3.
I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast. If it would have taken 2 weeks, maybe, but it's very hard to remove that kind of material. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with a war.
Now, one thing that works for Trump here with this situation is, yeah, it's possible and perhaps even likely that we did not do as much damage as we were told. But we do also know that many of these news outlets reporting this hate Trump and find anything they can do to be anti-Trump.
Are you sure about that?
I am more than 1,000%.
You're making a big presumption right there. Huh?
So I reported as a news person. This outlet says this based on this information. He says it's not true. But, I mean, take it with a grain of salt if CNN says what Trump's telling you is not true.
Maybe Chris should, from now on, say the mainstream media is allegedly anti-Trump.
There you go.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
So then would they be happy if they would have done more damage?
No,
That's
they
a good question.
want if they could have their way, they would say President Trump blew the planes over there and he missed.
Yes, that's
he hit Pakistan.
Yes, but you see the point I'm asking though?
Yeah.
Are you
saying like elated that maybe the damage wasn't done that was first reported?
Well, and
is that because he would give credit?
Listen, I've seen other reports that it was worse than that. Our damage that we did to the bombings of the B-2s was even more devastating than we realized. So,
well, in Israel, Israel is saying that Trump's strikes set Iran's nuclear program back by years.
Okay, there you go. That's
and
all
if Israel says it,
right?
Then
they're the ones with the most at stake here,
and perhaps the best intelligence agency in the world. as opposed to leaks from anonymous sources who might have an axe to grind or who might want to make Trump look
If I were President Trump, I wouldn't even answer him on that. I would just say that's, you know.
Here's one example of why you can take it with a grain of salt what a news outlet says. For example, this is the headline from the Daily Beast. Trump rages through night over leak of humiliating Iran flop. I already know what you feel about it.
Yeah.
Well, they bait Trump, too, and he falls for it.
Yeah, you mean in terms of he'll respond? He will respond.
They bait him and they say, "Hey, you didn't take him out like you said you did." Oh yeah, I did. I obliterated him. It was the greatest, best ever in the world history. I mean, he can't help himself.
Well, the fact of the matter is, nobody can know for sure because Iran's not going to let the International Atomic Energy Commission come and check it out.
Right, yeah.
So they're the ones who started off, we're talking about Iran, saying, they hardly scratched the surface. There's nothing. You remember the video of the guy driving down the highway saying there's nothing. It didn't even touch. You know, there's a little smoke in the distance. That's it. It's utter failure. And that's when people started comparing him to Baghdad Bob.
Okay, listen. We don't know the full story here yet. I just know looking at the satellite imagery and hearing how powerful these weapons were, and Israel's comments that they did the job. I mean, what more do you really need to know? And as you say, how will we know the full extent of this till maybe a month from now or 2 months from now when more investigation can be done? But it's like the left-wing media in this country is like gleeful at anything that may hurt President Trump. Right. In the polls or internationally or anything, they just, the Trump derangement syndrome. Right. It is real. Okay.
Absolutely.
They can't. He could walk on what somebody.
Well, what he could do is deport illegal immigrants who are criminals, and they be disappointed about that.
Yeah, and try to get the criminals released and brought back.
They're doing that too. Somebody said
that goes to the point of an example of a real life example of.
Somebody said he could walk on water, and the media would say, "Look, Trump can't swim."
Yeah.
I mean, that's how bad it is. So listen, as I say, Trump falls for it sometimes, and especially when he's tired looking and gets angry and upset, and he just lashes out. So I understand how that his feeling is on that. But let me ask you this: another indication too of the effectiveness of the what's it called? Operation what?
Overnight Hammer? What was that? Midnight Hammer, yeah.
Midnight Hammer. I remember the Midnight Special with Wolfman Jack. Do you remember that, Ed?
The Midnight Special with Wolfman Jack.
Don't you remember
Yes,
that?
I do remember that.
Wesley and Chris are looking at us like, what in the world are y'all talking about? Anyway, Wolfman. But this was called Operation Midnight Hammer. Mm-hmm. Okay, so another indication of the effectiveness of it is the truce, or the, what do you call it?
Ceasefire?
Ceasefire. Has that held now for 24, 48 hours?
It's still holding, but we're kind of on the edge of our seat to see whether or not, it's definitely fragile. That's the term we use in our headline today. Fragile ceasefire.
And let me just add another thing, too, to this discussion. Trump has said, I think it was yesterday, he said, we'll do it again. If they start to rebuild the nuclear program, we'll just bomb it again. And they're not going to wait for them to build it, whatever it is, a mile underground, or it's not quite that far.
All right, I want to see. I just want to see if Iran sends weapons again, tries to attack Israel again. If they try to attack Israel again, which I don't think they're going to do, okay, because of the effort that they put into that bombing of the U.S. military base the other day in Qatar, like President Trump and some of the others, maybe the Qatar officials said Iran sent 4 or 5 drone missiles over there to our military base and called ahead and said, hey,
it's on the way.
So DoorDash,
12-hour heads up.
You'll see them comment on your ring camera.
Drone Dash is on the way and be delivered in 2 hours.
Drone 12.